I know. I was sitting over there.
Good morning, everybody.
People are making.
It is 11:02 a.m. I'd like to kick off our meeting here this morning. This is the Will County Board Land Use and Development Meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and if you'll please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I will ask Member Judy Ogala, will you please lead us today?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Dawn, do you want to call the roll?
Good morning. Frankie Pretzel.
I'm here.
Sherry Newquist.
Here.
Herbert Brooks.
Here.
Dawn Bullock.
Here.
Raquel Mitchell. Judy Ogala. And Denise Winfrey.
Okay, we do have a quorum. I'm looking for a motion to approve minutes from the Will County Land Use and Development Committee meeting on January 2nd. Second. We have a motion. We have a second. Ogala. Dawn, please call the roll.
Frankie Pretzel.
Yes?
Sherry Newquist.
Yes.
Yes.
Dawn Bullock.
Yes.
Raquel Mitchell.
Yes.
Judy Ogala.
Yes.
And Denise Winfrey. Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have Will County Land Use and Development Committee regular meeting minutes from February 6th. Need a motion and a second.
Second previous Newquist. Second O'Gala.
We have a motion, a second, previous second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. On to new business. First up today, zoning case ZC 24081, Litmax Multi-Service Inc., requesting a special use permit for a truck terminal in New Lenox Township, commonly known as 22645 Cherry Hill Road, Joliet, Illinois, County Board District Number 2. The applicant has requested that we table this for 1 month as they look into doing a traffic study. So I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make it.
Motion
Second
Ogala, second Newquist. Previous Winfrey, second Brooks. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, we are tabling zoning case ZC 24081 to the April meeting. Next on the agenda, zoning case ZC 24103, Gene LP, owner of record. They're requesting a special use permit for a commercial solar energy facility, a variance for the number of required mowings from 5 times to 1 time, and a variance for a maximum ground cover plant height from 13 inches to 30 inches. This one's in Manhattan Township, commonly known as vacant property at southeast corner of West Manhattan Road and South Cherry Hill Road, Manhattan, Illinois, County Board District Number 2. Can I get a motion and a second?
Second Newquist.
Motion Winfrey, second Newquist. Marguerite, will you please give us some more information on this one?
Certainly. So this zoning case, the developer is Soltage IL Devco, where Stephanie Siankowski is the representative of Soltage and Troy Daniel is BL Companies, which is the engineering firm that was hired along with Soltage. There are actually 3 owners of the property. It's a 3-way limited partnerships. Each partnership is a 1/3 undivided interest. So we have the Gene LP, where Peter Voss is the general partner, Valerie Voss is a general partner, and then Andrea Harvey, Elizabeth Prinz, Olivia DeVries, and Abigail Voss are each 20.23% interest in that partnership. DPV LP is David Voss and Pamela Voss, each 50% partners in that particular partnership. And then TNCV LP is Thomas Voss and Cheryl Voss, each 50%. With this, the applicant is proposing a commercial solar energy facility on the site. They're actually proposing 2 separate 5-megawatt facilities that are adjacent to each other on this property. Each of the projects would potentially, they are being leased. So if all lease terms were extended, it would be 40 years per each project on site. The applicant is looking to participate in the pollinator-friendly ground cover and the Illinois Shines pollinator requirements with the IDNR is one of their strong suits that they mentioned in their landscape management plan and operation maintenance plans at this point in time. And if approved, they would be looking to continue to adhere to those requirements. Roughly, there will be about 22,000 panels on the property between the two projects. The applicant has made some concessions, meeting with Manhattan Township regarding the landscaping. They are wishing, and it was actually adopted as an additional condition, a 15-foot wide landscape area along Cherry Hill to the west and then Manhattan Road to the north. And since there is a residential couple houses to the northeast, to also provide landscaping around that property in the corner. With that, they would be making sure that the species are appropriate. They're working with the nursery that actually is adjacent to them to the south and west regarding what kind of plants would be best suited for that. And then I believe they'd be actually working with that nursery to provide the plant species. With that, the Village of Manhattan is objecting to the request. They see this being residential in the future as opposed to a solar facility. And aside from that, there were no other agencies speaking up in terms of concerns regarding that. They did complete a complete application to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And the Planning and Zoning Commission updated the recommended conditions to 9 from the original 6 in the staff report. With that, the Planning and Zoning Commission approved both variances, so those are done. So the only request before you is the special use permit for the commercial solar with the recommended 9 conditions, and they recommended 5-0. There was one commissioner who abstained from the vote, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
What were the 3 additional conditions that were added?
Yeah, so the additional recommending conditions were regarding that a 15-foot wide vegetative buffer shall be installed close along the north and west property lines of the native, consisting of native deciduous and evergreen trees and shrubs. That the tree planting should be a minimum height of 6 feet, the shrubs should be a minimum of 3 feet, and then the species should also be reviewed and approved by the Forest Preserve District. A minimum 6-foot tall chain link fence with a rail across the top to prevent the fence from sagging to ensure the security of the facility be installed. And then the last 2, the ground cover plantings to the south and east of the vegetative buffer would consist of native pollinator mix that's maintained in accordance to IDNR's Illinois Solar Site Pollinator Establishment Management Guidelines, as well as the operation maintenance plan. And the owner operator shall continue to work with Manhattan Township and Manhattan Township Road District to meet their requirements for permitting. So those conditions were based on the applicant actually recommending those conditions be added when they were working with the township.
And the reason for the chain link fence with bar across is because that's what the Manhattan Township estimated.
Correct.
That seems to be what they like in Manhattan Township. Chain link
That
fence
is
with a
correct.
bar across to make sure it doesn't sag. This is coming from the, I'm not a fence expert, but the Manhattan Township has requested that now on 2 different projects recently.
I do also want to point out the original condition that would allow above ground interconnection actually was removed by the Planning and Zoning Commission on behalf of the applicant in the township wanting it to be actually underground. So they are working with ComEd to make the appropriate underground connections.
Got it. Is the applicant here today? I invite you up to the microphone over on the your right-hand side of the room here. And then, Member Newquist, if you have a question for staff.
Thank you. I saw that the Illinois Historic Preservation Office first issued a letter saying that a portion of it was in the Jackson branch of the Des Plaines River with a high probability of containing significant archaeological resources, and they recommended that more information be identified. And then I saw, subsequent to that, they issued a letter saying that they did not identify any known historic properties. So does that mean that they actually did the study and like looked for?
I believe that's actually between the 2 separate projects.
Okay.
The one project that I think is closer to Jackson Creek is still requesting a phase 1 archaeological study, which actually is staff's recommended condition number 6. To
Oh,
just
okay. I
make sure they
didn't
follow up with the SHPO to make sure that they're not finding anything that would be impactful to archaeological sites.
Got it. I wasn't understanding that it was for the two separate areas. Thank you.
Did I see Member Ogala's light going on and off? Oh, okay. Okay. Hi, welcome. Please make sure your microphone's turned on and then introduce yourself.
Hi, good morning. My name is Stephanie Sinkowski. I'm with Soltage LLC. I put together a short presentation. Maybe we can bring it up and I can just walk you quickly through some of the interactions that we've had with the various agencies. So first of all, maybe going to the next slide, Soltage is a community solar developer. We've been in business since 2005. We've constructed over 120 solar projects across 15 states, 11 community solar projects in Illinois. And we do everything from origination and development through managing construction, bringing in financing for the project, and then owning it long term. The next slide, you can see this is a general view of our site plan. As Marguerite stated, it's 2 5-megawatt projects on approximately 54 acres within the fence line of a 78-acre parcel. The site will be utilizing an existing farm entrance off of Manhattan Road to the north. We'll have 2 interconnection points on Manhattan Road. We know that the village did express interest in commercial use of the property for the future, so we have set the project back as far from Manhattan Road as possible. There's at least 220 feet, so businesses can potentially be brought up along the road in the future. Additionally, there's at least 140-foot setback from the fence line to the residential properties to the northeast. We've worked closely with Manhattan Township and have made the following commitments to them. I think some of them were incorporated in as conditions to the special use permit, but there are additional conditions which I just wanted to list out for you. There's the 15-foot wide vegetative buffer along the north and west property lines consisting of native deciduous and evergreen trees and shrubs. The planting height will be 6 feet, and the species have been recommended by Green Glen Nursery, which is the abutting neighbor. And we will send that list over to the Forest Preserve District for approval. The 6-foot tall chain link fence, which you mentioned with the rail across the top. We will utilize the buried cables connected to the pad mounted equipment for the points of interconnection. There may be 1 riser pole per project if that's required by ComEd to interconnect to the ComEd overhead infrastructure on Manhattan Road. And then the ground cover between the vegetative buffer and Manhattan and Cherry Hill roads will consist of native grasses that will be maintained according to Will County Solar Ordinance. So they'll have the maximum height of 12 inches and be mowed at least 5 times between the months of May to October. But then the ground cover to the south and east of the vegetative buffer, past the tree line, that will be maintained according to IDNR's Illinois Solar Site Pollinator Establishment Management Guidelines. So we have the variance to reduce mowings from 5 times to 1 time per year and to allow ground cover to grow to a maximum of 30 inches, which would allow those pollinators to thrive. And just to be clear, during the establishment period of those pollinators, this area will be mowed at a height of 10 inches or greater 1 to 3 times during the growing season if there are undesirable weeds overtopping the newly established seedlings. And then once established, the mowings would be reduced. There is also a surety bond that we would provide to Manhattan Township in the event that landscaping or fencing falls into disrepair or if grass becomes overgrown. Additionally, we've executed the Agricultural Impact Mitigation Agreement, which includes a requirement that we provide financial assurance for decommissioning. That would be posted with Will County. The AMA also ensures that any damaged drain tiles throughout the construction process are repaired and that the site and vegetation is maintained throughout the life of the project. As more commitments to the township, we'll also be posting additional financial security with Manhattan Township Road District for Cherry Hill Road. So even though Cherry Hill Road is not expected to be utilized for construction, this bond will be there just in case the road is damaged from construction vehicles accidentally utilizing the road. But we will post no construction signs on the corners of Manhattan and Cherry Hill Road to prevent construction vehicles from entering. So those, in addition to speaking with Manhattan Township, we also have spoken with a few other agencies. We held a community meeting on August 21st of last year where we invited about 190 households to attend a Q&A session. We met with the Manhattan Fire District and we've implemented their guidelines into the site plan. So most notably, you can see that there is a fence, that every part of the area within the fence is within 600 feet of the fire road. And we'll continue to work with them to make sure that all of their guidelines are implemented. We've also engaged with the Will County Forest Preserve and with the Will County SWCD, who provided the NRI, and we will continue to work with them on the full conservation plan for this project. If you can flip to the next slide, please. Just a few short things about the benefits of solar. You know, subscribers to the project will be able to save between 10 and 20% on their electricity bills. About 2,000 homes can be provided electricity through these projects. The projects will generate approximately 75 contractor jobs throughout construction, and many of those contractors will be staying local to the project. And we're seeking to source the vegetation from Green Glen Nursery. In terms of restoration of the land for future agricultural use, the native pollinator mix will help rebuild topsoil, improve soil structure and stability, and restore nutrients into the soil. Increased biodiversity supports habitats, wildlife, including endangered pollinator populations, and the deep root systems of the pollinators prevent soil erosion and reduces stormwater runoff. We also will not be using any dangerous chemicals or pesticides on the land. The next slide just shows the forecasted tax benefits. You can see the existing taxes in the second column in the middle, and then you can see the forecasted taxes with the solar project. So many beneficiaries here, including the township, the forest preserve, the county, local schools, and the parks and libraries as well. And then the last slide, I won't go through this, but this is just a snip of the vegetative management plan for pollinator ground cover according to the IDNR regulations. So you can see it's broken down to short-term and long-term. I will be happy to take any additional questions.
I have a question about the actual landscaping. So it's unique that you're partnering with a nursery that actually kind of shares the benefits of what you're doing here because they share property line with you.
Exactly.
Have they committed to maintaining the landscaping as well as providing it and planting it? In other words, if it died, are they going to replace it? Are they watering it?
So they are not actually going to be installing the landscaping, but our contractors will be purchasing the trees from them and installing it. We do have a 1-year warranty on those trees. So if they do die within that first year, then we'll, our contractor is responsible to make sure that they're replaced. If they die after the 1 year, then it's on us to make sure that it's replaced.
Yeah, that's what I've learned is, these projects are out in the country getting full sunlight all day. And the pictures you show always look really nice, but 2 years into it, you drive by and everything's brown and dead. And all it really does is make sure that you can't mow between them. Right. So now you got weeds growing over it and it becomes more of a nuisance than it was, what it was intended to do, which was kind of make the area look better. So I just wonder what your plan is to make sure these plants, and not plants, but plantings, make it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did have an extensive conversation with the owner of the nursery, and he has selected species that he knows grows well in the area. He also has a pond on his property, which he offered for water and additional mulch if we need it for a project. So with him being so close by, we'll be monitoring it. But if there's any replacements that need to happen, it can happen in a timely manner.
I see Judy's light on. Member Ogala, sorry.
Thank you. And unfortunately, I didn't get to talk with Manhattan Township about the fencing. I mean, I always prefer ag fencing in the rural area versus chain link because chain link is ugly. But but I didn't talk with them about that.
They're here today. I see.
Yeah,
them
I said,
heading down.
yeah, I can ask when he gets up, but, so my question would be, while the nursery does specific things and provide things, you should also then work with Soil and Water Conservation District with your conservation plan as to what should be planted there based on the soils that you have. I don't know if the nursery goes to that extent, but I know that, if you pick from the state with the state AMA and all that with IDNR, it's a generic plan for the entire state. And as we know, each property, even, next to each other, could have completely different soils. Therefore, you should have different plantings on each. So I hope that you will work with them to make sure that you plant the right things that will last there. And that's good for the property. So you've worked with Manhattan Township Road District, and do you work with an agreement? You have a bond with them and everything?
We will. We don't have one in place yet because we haven't started construction, but before we do start construction, we'll have a bond in place.
Okay,
But the Manhattan Road is actually a county-owned road.
well, that I know.
Yeah.
All right, I'll be driving past this facility on the way into Joliet every time I come in, so I just was wondering about that. I think you did answer a lot of our questions. You must have looked at the solar guidelines to see that those things were done, and I'll just ask the township when they come up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from this committee? Okay. Don't go far. We may have more questions for you, but I see a representative from Manhattan Township is here. I invite you up to the microphone.
Good morning. My name is Jim Walsh. I'm supervisor with Manhattan Township. I live at 25959 South Cedar Road. And I came mostly because one reason. I have to say Soltage has been pretty darn good to deal with so far as solar farms go. And I have to tell you the truth, when these solar farms started coming and we knew they were going to come at us, I took 3 or 4 weekends to travel from Mendota to Pontiac, St. Anne to the state line, Indiana, to look at solar farms. And it's really hard to find a very pretty one that is appealing to the eye. So a lot of these questions, want-tos that we have asked Soltage for that we think helps make these look better, because I don't think people are so against the solar farms. A lot of it is just appearance, because they basically don't pay any attention to them when they go by, except, and that's the reason, one of the reasons I came was because it says here that if ComEd doesn't want to or can't put the power underground, or if they can't do it because of the power connection. Have you had any problem with that, I wonder, that anybody knows? Because we haven't heard that before. We asked for this on the first solar farm that came to us about 6 months ago. And I don't believe it was in the staff report, anything about that ComEd might want them to keep it above ground. But anyway, that's our concern, is about it being underground, because that is one of the things that catch your eye when you go by a solar farm is 6 or 7 poles sticking 30 feet in the air with transformers hanging on them. And they can be put underground with the transformer set on a pad and are pretty respectable. They actually are pretty much behind the 6 or 7 foot fence, whatever, and the trees and shrubs in the front. So that is our concern about this. They have the other stuff that Soltage has gone along, and so we're okay. That is our biggest concern is, and we will dig into it with ComEd also. I don't know if there's some reason that was brought up, because I just haven't heard it before. But anyway, so that's my say.
So I think in the beginning, when we saw this, most people didn't know what to ask for. They didn't know what they were going to be looking at. So you're right. It is unsightly to see these large poles with the transformers and everything just plopped in the middle of wherever, right? Because it's not what you usually see visibly in the countryside. So I think requesting that it's underground hookup is great. I don't know. I know in the past we had some solar companies come forward to put in a solar facility and they didn't proceed. And maybe it was because they couldn't get a connection with ComEd, because sometimes that happens.
Yeah.
But they don't always know that upfront when they're trying. I think they're still making that decision to whether they can get it. So I think that's a good thing. What I said about the fencing was, Kankakee County has a lot of the agricultural fencing, which is more of the wood posts with the wire.
Yeah, like
Versus chain link.
6, 7 foot high. It's like woven wire fence.
Right, it's typical to, the same height as the chain link. It just is, I think it's better look than a chain
To
link
the
fence.
terrain.
But
And,
if
and
that's what you guys like, I'm not gonna.
Well, to be honest,
opposed to it.
Judy, one of the reasons was sometimes it starts sagging after a while. You know, like the one over Clear by any, I've been there 10 or 15 years on Pauling Road all the way. Well,
But they would have chain link, right? Because
yeah, yes.
we didn't use ag fencing back then. We had chain link.
Anyway, the thing with the cyclone fence with the pipe on the top, it doesn't sag, it stays pretty much the way it is. And that's our biggest concern. That's not the end of the world, but, you know, that was what we just kind of thought.
Yeah, the only thing I know that some people have issues with was, you know, they hadn't always installed the entrance to the property with putting in the culvert fast enough to these.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to is the biggest issue that I've seen has been the upkeep of the landscaping, because you'll see the trees or the arborvitaes and the bushes, and in amongst all that, it's all weeds, because who's going in and mowing? That's always my thing with that.
Right, maintenance is a big issue.
Right, so for me, what I've seen, especially in Kankakee County, is the farmer's farm up to the fence line.
Yes, that's not all bad. Our first little one out there, we did do that, where they could come up to it.
Yeah, so
yes.
that's
Mhm.
my argument. How do you maintain that?
Right.
What's
Now,
their commitment to maintaining that for the 40 years that we have?
I know, the 40 years is the part. Now, they agreed to put up a surety bond that if they don't take care of it, that we can have somebody mow the outside, you know, what's outside of the fence.
Which is good.
But, you know, that's not, like you say, it lasts 40 years.
Right, so how much is that surety bond for? I don't know. 'Cause
Right.
That's a big issue.
We haven't actually set the amount, but it's to be agreeable. So, and the other thing is with the trees, with the bushes, and I know, you know, over across Beecher Blacktop, they put in 2 of them. And after they were in there about a year, and then they came out and they planted these little 3-foot pine trees, which covered nothing. And it's going to be 10 years before they ever get to the top of the fence. That's why we asked for these 6-foot trees that we hope will help, just cover it up a little bit, you know, it doesn't have to be.
And so the only other thing I wanted to say as far as that, to make sure that when you guys are out there driving and you see an issue with the landscaping, be sure to call into land use department and put in a complaint, because their land use department does not go out and monitor these solar facilities. And therefore, unless somebody complains about it, nothing happens. And I had a lot in Cree Township where they didn't even plant, all of the plants didn't get planted. They were just dumped on the side. The hole was there. The containers, the black containers that come in the pots, they were just tossed aside.
Yeah.
So to make sure that that doesn't happen, you guys would be eyes on the ground to see that. And if you notice it, call in, because that way land use will get after them and make sure that they are doing it, because I don't want an eyesore
Yeah, right.
for 40 years, 10
And
years.
we will
whatever.
call because people will be calling us.
Great, thank you.
Okay, and thank you.
Yep. Hold on, Member Brooks. Question, Mr. Wall?
Yes, no, actually for you, Mr. Chairman, because the supervisor hadn't brought this up. Member Ogala brought this up, and you brought it up. Variance number V24318, variance for number required mowings go from 5 to 1. Help me to understand, since I can't pronounce the big word aesthetic, I'd say curb appeal. How's that? Help me to understand. How do you go a variance from 5 to 1, and you were concerned, Mr. Chairman, about the mowing, and especially 2 years from now?
Yeah, this is always a concern of mine. I'd love for you to tell us.
The only, and I know exactly what you're talking about. I mean, I understand. But the only thing I understand, because Mr. Oikos came to our meeting, he's the landscaper that we're talking about, owns has a big tree farm around there. And he said the only thing, I think with this word that I can't pronounce either, Mr. Brooks, that these plants, that they're better off being mowed only once or twice a year, because when you mow them off, they have to start growing all over again. And when they grow, they don't grow to this 3-foot height. They're shorter plants. Something like that he explained to us. Anyway, he wasn't against that either, and he's a regular landscaper, and he seemed to understand that.
But
Yeah, to be honest.
She should come, I know she knows the answer.
Right. This does, it's like every project is asking for this, and you wonder if it's just their attempt to mow less.
Yeah, so this is why the curb appeal issue is why we separated the vegetation outside of the tree line versus inside. So outside of the tree line, close to the roads between Manhattan and Cherry Hill Road and the trees, we're going to be maintaining the native grasses according to Will County standards. So we will be mowing that 5 times between the months of May to October and keeping it under 12 inches. But then on the inside where we have those pollinators, in order for the pollinators to actually thrive and, produce flowers to do what they're supposed to do, they need to actually be able to flower. And if you mow them 5 times a year, then you're cutting off all the flowers. So we did select a growth where, as you said, a lot of it is they are going to be low growth pollinators. The highest species is expected to reach a maximum height of 30 inches, but that's, I think in the vegetation list, a very small number.
That's all right. Member Newquist.
So for the pollinators, are you following the guidelines of the Illinois Pollinator Program in setting those mowings and other issues associated with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're following the guidelines of the Illinois Pollinator Program. And then we also spoke with the fire district and they suggested the one mowing in October, which is, right before the winter. And then hopefully, there won't be any fire hazards because of the mowing at that time.
Thank you.
Member Ogalla.
Yeah, so we have that type of planting on our property, on my farm. And so I'm glad to hear that you're going to mow outside the property 5 times a year. That's where we've seen the most impact with weeds and everything like that. So that's a good thing to hear. Inside the pollinators, it does take time. I think that you should find out from Soil and Water, what is the best time to mow pollinators? And get it from them rather than fire district. I don't know that the fire district has any idea when is the best time to mow them down. But you do have to not cut, and the pollinators will be mixed with a grass mix of some sort. And then again, get the exact species of grasses to plant from Soil and Water, because they'll evaluate your soils and let you know what is the right grasses to be planting there with the pollinators. And then you have a great way with the pollinators and grass mix to contain the dirt, so it's not moving around. And yes, pollinators take a while to grow. And then once they do grow, they reseed themselves and you get more and more flowers to be there for the reason we put pollinators in. So thank you.
Thank you. And then just one last question for Mr. Walsh there. I know you're with the township, not the village, but the village is objecting. They think this is likely to be residential in the near future. I mean, I know Manhattan's growing like crazy, but do you see this land being residential in the near future?
Well, and we talked to the village about that because we like to agree with them or go along with them when things work. And our only problem was they're within 1.5 miles. They're approximately 1 mile from there. And they said is that they feel that there's enough property there for housing. That's why they asked them to keep it back some from the front, that possibly if it was ever commercial, I don't know if 220 feet are enough for that. But we talked to the mayor before we met with them, and as long as they were moving that, they felt that that area, as long as if we can make it look respectable, that they can deal with that. They would be
Thank you.
quite all right.
Thank you. Is there anybody here that wants to comment on this case before we vote?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee? Ready to vote? Okay. Go ahead, Dawn. Thank you.
With 9 conditions. Frankie Pretzel,
Yes.
Sherry Newquist,
Yes.
Herbert Brooks, Dawn Bullock, Raquel Mitchell, Judy Ogalla, and Denise Winfrey.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next up on the agenda is zoning case ZC 24105, William and Diane Tamborski, owner of record. They're requesting a special use permit for a landscape and lawn maintenance business and a variance for side yard setback from 50 feet to 10 feet. Frankfurt Township, commonly known as 10036 West 187th Street, Mokina, Illinois County Board District Number 4. I'm looking for a motion and a second. We have a motion, Winfrey, second, O'Gala, and then Kelly. Do you want to fill in the blanks on this one?
Yeah, so the owner of the property is William and Diane Tamborski, and the attorney is Michael Pascarella. They're requesting a special use permit to operate their landscaping business. The landscaping business is Three Brothers Landscaping. They're currently operating out of the residence on the property, but if the special use permit is approved, they plan on constructing a pole barn for their office and keeping the existing residence. Staff did receive a letter from the Village of Mokina addressing the special use permit. Since then, the letter has withdrawn their comment regarding a pre-annexation agreement, and that was provided as a memo. And also, the attorney at the Planning and Zoning meeting provided letters of support from neighboring property owners. And the Planning and Zoning Commission approved the variance and is recommending approval of the special use permit with 4 conditions. And staff is also recommending approval with 4 conditions. And I believe the attorney's here to answer any questions, and I can answer questions as well.
Mr. Pascarella, I invite you up to the microphone. We have a question for staff from Member Newquist here.
Yep, I saw that you guys originally denied the variance. You were recommending denial. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so the variance was recommended for denial by staff, and it's mainly because there was no hardship for having the structure located encroaching on the side setback, but the Planning and Zoning Commission approved the variance.
I will say too, this project, property is right up against I-80. It's a pretty good spot for, right up against I-80. Oh. And on the, yeah, it's so. And on the other side of I-80 is full industrial. So anyway.
Morning. Thank you for having me. I'd like to thank the committee for hearing us out. My name is Michael Pascarella. I'm with the law firm of Wendland and Associates. I'm here on behalf of the property owner, Bill Tamborski. I have Bill here along with his son, Justin. They're the owners of Three Brothers Landscaping, which operates out of the property. They're requesting a special use permit in order to continue operating their landscaping company. They specialize in both commercial and residential design and installation of landscaping. They've been in business since 1988. They're moving their operation from Oak Forest to this current location. Both Bill and Justin are residents in the area. Justin in the Mokina area, Bill in the New Lenox area. The purpose of moving out here was obviously the need for their services in the growing Lincoln Way area. It's more beneficial for them to be out here. The property's bigger. I know we submitted some 3D renderings that Justin designed. He's the designer there for the PZC meeting. I'm not sure if they're in your file or not. Shows kind of what they plan to do there. The natural screening on the front of the property is already there with the natural landscaping, the planting of the trees for additional screening on the side. I also want to point out, as staff pointed out, this has been recommended, the special use permit has been recommended for approval by staff. We did go to a meeting with the Frankfurt Township. They unanimously voted in support of it. The road commissioner was also there. He voiced his support of it at the meeting. We've submitted letters of support from the adjoining property owners to the east and the west side of the property. We've received verbal support, although we haven't received the letters, from the property owners to the north and the south side. The Village of Mokina hasn't objected to it. As staff's notated on their memo, they had that comment about a pre-annexation agreement. They've since withdrawn that. We've received no objection from everybody, and I don't believe there is any objectors here today. So we'd respectfully request that the special use permit be approved today, or recommended for approval today. And I thank you for your time, and I'm here to answer any questions, or if there's any specifics, Justin can also help in answering those.
I do know the village administrator of Mokina would be here if he had any problems with this. He's not one to miss these meetings. Any questions from, okay,
I
is,
just want to know how, I don't see it yet. How big is the entire property?
It's 5.35 acres,
So little 3.5 acres? Okay.
over 5 acres, 5.35.
Oh, 5, oh, okay,
Yep.
okay. Thank you.
thanks. Is there anybody here that wants to comment on this case? Okay, I think we're ready to vote. Dawn?
With 4 conditions, Frankie Pretzel,
Yes.
Sherry Newquist.
Yes.
Herbert Brooks.
Yeah.
Dawn Bullock.
Yes.
Raquel Mitchell.
Yes.
Judy Ogala.
Yes.
And Denise Winfrey.
Okay, motion carries. Congratulations, guys. Next on the agenda, zoning case ZC 24109, Anita D. Batson, revocable trust, owner of record, requesting a special use permit for a commercial solar energy facility, a variance for ground cover plant height from 13 inches to 36 inches, a variance for number of required mowings from 5 times to 1 time, a variance for ground cover plant height from 13 inches to 36 inches, a variance for the number of required mowings from 5 times to 1 time per year. This one's in New Lenox Township, commonly known as vacant property on South Spencer Road, New Lenox, Illinois, County Board District Number 2. Can I please get a motion and a second?
Second, O'Gara.
Winfrey, second O'Gala. I'm going to turn this over to Ashlyn.
Yeah, so the applicant's requesting approval of a special use permit for the entire 34-acre property, constructing a 4.95 megawatt commercial solar energy facility occurring on 2 pins. The applicant also requested variances as part of the zoning request. Due to the development occurring on 2 separate pins, 2 variances were requested on each parcel. Per the project narrative, the project is proposed to power about 990 homes. Site plan shows an access road on the property from South Spencer Road. The applicant is proposing 9,963 solar panels on the site. Of the agencies notified, no one objected. The Village of New Lenox Board voted not to object to the special use permit and provided 7 recommended conditions, which was sent out as a memo. At the Planning and Zoning meeting on February 18th, the board recommended approval of the special use permit with the 4 conditions and added a 5th condition requiring a sidewalk to be constructed on the east side of the property along the right-of-way. The Planning and Zoning Commission voted 6-0 to approve the special use permit with the 5 conditions and approved all 4 variances. No objectors were present and staff is recommending approval. I do know the applicant is here and they did prepare a presentation if interested in seeing that.
Okay, thank you. And the 7 conditions requested by the Village of New Lenox, have those already been added, or is that something that we need to?
Yeah, I think at the Planning and Zoning Board, they looked at the 7 conditions and found that the sidewalk one was the only one that they wanted to add, but you guys can also add conditions.
Okay. So 6 of them are included already, but the only one that wasn't is the sidewalk.
The only one out of the 7 that was included was the sidewalk ones, only 1. There was 4 existing that staff added, and then the PZC board added 1 from the New Lenox Board recommended conditions.
Thank you. I see the applicant getting ready to come up. I invite you to the microphone.
Conditions.
Yeah, do you have those conditions that you can
I don't see that.
read them for us?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, members of the committee. I'm Kyle Barry. I'm an attorney with McGuire Woods, and I'm representing the applicant. As Ms. Kirby pointed out, they're seeking a special use permit application for about a 5 megawatt solar project. Now, I've appeared before this committee before a number of times on solar projects, and I know you've seen quite a few of them over the last couple of years. We think this particular location is a good one. The site's a good one for a solar project for a couple of reasons. I think it may be distinguished from some other sites you've seen before. First, it's kind of an irregularly shaped parcel, which you will see here in a minute because as Ms. Kirby indicated, we do have a PowerPoint presentation. I'll get to that in a second. It's wedged in. There's a railroad to the north and a water utility facilities to the south. There's kind of a unique feature in the middle of this property. There's both a gas line and a water line easement that kind of bisects it. Again, you'll see that in a second. I just kind of wanted to preview that for you. And then I think that's one of the reasons why the Village of New Lenox had no objections. In their long-term plans, they had looked at this property for potential residential development, but they determined that in part because of this utility line, it's not a great site for residential. So at this time, I'd like to turn things over to Colin Walker, who's with the developer, and he'll be followed up by Ben Dykema, who's engineer for the developer. Thank you.
Good morning. Again, my name is Colin Walker. I'm from ECA Solar. ECA Solar, I'll just get started, but ECA Solar is a community scale solar developer. We have been around since 2014. We have a number of projects in development within Illinois, and we have developed projects throughout the United States. Some of those states are listed above. I'm here today to specifically talk about New Lenox Community Energy Initiative, which you're seeing up on the screen now. This is just under 5 megawatts AC, and as Kyle previewed for you, it is uniquely placed, wedged between a number of infrastructure. So to the north is not only transmission line, but also you have the railroad. To the south is the water infrastructure for the Village of New Lenox. We have about 350 feet of road frontage on South Spencer Road there, which adds to the difficulty of developing this project for residential uses. You wouldn't have enough room you only have enough room for one access point. And that was, again, one of the reasons that New Lenox said that this was a particularly difficult parcel to develop. Again, we have that 2 easements running through the middle, which actually creates 2 separate arrays. We will not be crossing over that easement with any part of our solar system. There's two arrays, 2 fences encompassing this project. Next slide, please. So this project takes outreach very seriously. ECA takes outreach very seriously. We completed the required Will County outreach, and then we proactively approached New Lenox up to 4 times, I believe. We had just an initial meet and greet, then we had a presentation in July, and then we went to their board meetings to formally present this project to them in, I believe it was, February. Time flies. And we received the vote of no objection for this project. And we also reached out to the abutters. So we held a community meeting at New Lenox Public Library, inviting the abutters to this project to learn about this, ask questions, and take any of the feedback that we received and try to incorporate it into our design. And so if we move on to the next slide. You heard this earlier, so I'll keep this extremely short, but there are 2 main benefits that we like to talk about with community solar. You have economic and community. For the economics, this project is estimated to bring in over $875,000 in tax revenue over 35 years. We'll be spending money in the Illinois economy and creating jobs throughout construction and then post-construction. This project will also have enough power to be subscribed to by 990-ish ComEd customers, and there'll be no strain on public services such as traffic, school district, police, water, sewer, et cetera. And with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Ben.
Ben Dykema, I'm the Director of Civil Engineering at ECA Solar. Just real quickly, I'll touch on these 2 points here. The project, we did complete a glare study and a sound study for this project. The glare study looks at multiple receptors at various points around the site. And really what we're trying to do there is analyze if there's going to be any glare off the solar panels that could impact those. What the study found is that there is no glare, 0 hours that's expected. The sound study, similarly, we look at any noise emissions from the site. These typically only come from really the equipment. The solar panels themselves are silent. And what we found from this study is, or what the study concluded is, we're well below the IPCB noise requirements to the surrounding areas. Next slide. I know we've talked about, or you guys have heard a lot of discussion about, the plantings and the landscaping, and so I'm going to try to spend a little bit more time on this slide here. But just to talk about, we are proposing pollinator species, similar to other projects that you've heard recently. Obviously, there's a lot of benefits here. These types of species help increase stormwater infiltration, which can decrease the stormwater runoff. They help with things like soil erosion, habitats for wildlife. Just to let you know where we are, our plan right now is we're working with a consultant to develop a more inclusive plan for what type of species we will be planting. Once that plan is developed, we do plan on submitting this to the Will County Soil and Water Conservation Plan. They will, with the expectation that they will review it. We understand that the conservation plan will also require a site visit with the folks there, which we'll plan on doing, and take any feedback. And at that time, we'll make any modifications to the plan. So we want to be very cognitive of that. We also, and the slide doesn't touch on it, but I do want to mention that we do have landscaping proposed along South Spencer Road. We are following the Village of New Lenox's landscaping ordinance for this. So it will be evergreens, likely arborvitaes, as well as understory trees and shrubs here. The fence along the South Spencer Road is, as requested by the village, we're going to propose a PVC fence. And this is just for the section along South Spencer Road. The rest of the site will have an agricultural fence. That was per their request, so it blocks more of the view. We are making sure that there's enough space between the fence and our landscaping for maintenance, since I know that is a concern. We similar to what you heard previously, we are also planning on, let me take a step back. The pollinators within the site, we did request a variance for the number of mowings and the plant height. We plan, that reduction is only going to apply to the pollinators within the site, not to the turf surrounding the landscaping. That turf we will plan on mowing 5 times and limiting it to 10 inches. So.
And the sidewalk, do you want to touch on that? What's
Yeah, sure. So that was, and I'll touch on it and you let me know if I miss anything. So the sidewalk was a request from Village of New Lenox. We're happy to install that. I think in their request, they had requested that we install it all the way down to where the existing sidewalk ended, which is beyond our parcel. And that was our only objection to that. We're happy to install it along our frontage, but just because we don't own the land to the south, we can't connect it to the where the sidewalk ends, which is what they had mentioned.
How far apart are we? How far would the gap be?
I'm going to estimate about 400.
Yeah, I'd say 400, 500 feet.
Somewhere around there. Yeah. All right. Next slide. And just to point out too, we do have a drain tile survey that we completed for this project already. General flow, this site is to the north. We do have a few extensions that go off the site and towards the railroad there. We do plan on following both the AMA requirements and Will County's requirements for making sure that no impacts to this system occur in the sense that we're affecting the functionality or the flow within here. Any impacts will be repaired, or we may even look at rerouting this with a like-kind pipe size. I think I'll turn it over back to Kyle.
Yeah, thanks. This is the last slide, and it's here only to mention that Andrew Lines from Cohn Resnick prepared a property value impact study. He testified at the PZC to indicate that, in his opinion, there will not be a negative impact on neighboring property values for this project. So with that, that concludes our presentation. We're stand ready and happy to take questions. Just as a reminder, I think that the PZC it certainly voted to approve the variances. I don't know if that was unanimous, but I think the recommendation for the special use permit was unanimous. Is that correct, Ms. Kirby? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody here that wishes to comment or speak on this case? Okay, any other questions from the committee?
Yeah,
Mr. Brooks?
Oh,
Member Brooks? I'm sorry.
Kyle, I appreciate your property value study. Looked like you all did your homework. Property value is always a concern when we're talking about projects like this. So my question is, how do you come up with this kind of data before this facility is even built to know what kind of impact they will have on a community?
Yeah, that's a good question. And of course, I'm not the expert, but the expert, Mr. Lyons, did testify with the at the PZC hearing. And one of the things that's shown on this slide here is a project in Indiana that is, as you can see, there's a neighborhood. I believe the contractor is, I don't know if it says on the slide or not, but it's Lennar. It's a big national housing developer, and they're building this project. It's in the process, still, their house is under construction, and as you can see, it's right next to a solar project. And if you take a look at the report that's in the application materials, it's about 118 pages long, I believe. But this is one example of a number of examples that provide actual data of sales data of the homes that are next to existing solar projects. So while you correctly point out, Pastor Brooks, that that it's a prediction, right? Because the project's not built yet. I think based on the conclusions drawn by the report, they look at the data for other projects in the Midwest and have concluded that since they don't provide a negative impact on property values, it's anticipated this project will not either.
Well, of course, neighborhoods will argue with you, but Mr. Lyons provided you in a property values for state of Indiana. And
no, this is one example from the property value study. It includes other examples for projects that are built in Illinois. There haven't been, what you have to look at the actual sales data is you have to have projects that have been built and constructed and operating for a while, and then sales around them, right? And because solar, I know you probably find it hard to believe given the number of these that you've handled in the last couple of years. Solar is still fairly new in Illinois, so there just aren't that many projects that have been operating for a while. And so again, you haven't had a lot of sales nearby. So but for these other projects in like this one in Indiana, there have been if you look at the report, there are some sales around projects that have been operating in Illinois. There's one in LaSalle County, for example, as I recall. I think there's one in Logan County. So there are some Illinois examples in that report.
And I certainly don't object, nor am I trying to give you a hard time, but I know when these come into our community, we hear from our neighbors. And one of the biggest concern is property value of their home. I hear that quite frequently.
Yeah, no, and it's a fair question. I understand the anxiety folks have, but the reality is if you look at the data according to, again, I'm just telling you what the report says. He looks at the sales data. He looks at there are other studies that have been done nationwide. And then he's called some of the county assessors around the state, and not one of them has ever found that there's been a negative impact on property value. So that's, again, I'm just telling you what the report says.
And I believe you and Mr. Lyons has some very impressive acronyms behind his name, so I believe him. Thank you.
He does.
Thank you. Chair Ogala?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch this. Do you own or lease, will you be owning or leasing the property?
It's currently under an option to purchase. So
Option
we
purchase,
would
okay.
be owning it.
And what is the distance between where the solar array will be and the closest home?
Is it like I think it's 350, 400 feet.
Okay, and you just own that parcel where we see the solar arrays, you don't own the
So
rest
this,
of it?
this is not.
Oh, this is not it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right, I forgot. Around it, you don't have any residential at all that you,
We
that I
have one
can
home
see.
across the street and one home to the south. And then, Ashley, if you go all the way to the end, there's an appendix and you can get a larger picture of the array. Yeah, right here. So right across the street to the east, there's a home, and south of the array, there's a home. And then the next closest one is to the north over the railroad, over the transmission line.
Okay, okay, sorry, I got confused.
No,
in the
that's okay.
picture, yeah, so, okay, and what was, if I can ask again, staff, New Lenox had put seven requests forward, which one are we not doing? Or, I mean, most of them are, there's just generic ones that we do all the time, right?
Yeah, so when the staff report was sent out, there was 4 staff recommended conditions that were added. And that was done before the Village of New Lenox sent the memo with the conditions. So once the memo was sent out, I think that was sent out February 10th or something around that date. Then at the PZC meeting, the board reviewed the 7 recommended conditions and decided to only add 1 of them, which was the sidewalk. So 6 of them were not chosen to be added by the PZC board. Only 1 of them was recommended. So there's a total of 5 conditions currently.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I will just add, we are doing them all.
That's what I thought, because one is, the proposed solar facility shall meet the setback requirements. Well, that's something we require them to do. Prior to construction, a cross easement shall be granted to the village for 24-hour access between the village and subject parcel, but we're not doing that one, right?
So the only one that we are not, so we pushed back on 2 and only wanted to modify them. One was they asked us, we interpreted it as taking the sidewalk all the way from the railroad down to the school. We said, well, how about we just do it across the property that we plan to own? And the other one was that they wanted screening along the entire south boundary. And we said, we'll do the screening where the home to the south is, but then screening the water facility, that didn't really make much sense to us, and that would just create a problem. So, oh, thank you, Kyle. Yeah, the police pushed back on our meeting with them. They wanted to be able to see in, so.
And I think that's a good idea.
So all the other ones I'm pretty sure we are doing them, just modifying 2 of them.
Thank you.
Member Newquist?
Yeah, that was my question for clarification. So you are doing all the conditions except for extending the sidewalk?
So that's correct. And then the other one we're not doing is the screening all across the south, just.
Right, just where
350
the,
feet or whatever.
okay. Do we need to, I mean, because they're not added, I mean, do we need to make an amendment to add those?
Would it help if I just gave a description of the 7 conditions that the village said? It is included on the agenda as a memo.
Are they what
I'm not
Member
seeing
Ogala
it.
just read?
There's 7 of them. The only one that's added is the sidewalk one.
I think we're good. Thank you,
Okay.
though. Thank you.
So I think you guys, that if you look at it, some of the stuff is the proposed facility shall abide by all New Lenox Fire Protection District requirements. We make them do that, part of our ordinance. They have to do that. So that's something, but the village wouldn't know that we do that. The setbacks, that's part of our plan as well. Do we have a setback for distance from the closest residential, do you know?
I can pull up the exact ordinance, but I believe it's 150 feet to the nearest non-participating residence.
And you're 350 feet from
We
there.
are more than 150, yes.
Yeah, which is good, right? The other one is the cross-access easement, which you guys,
You have to get.
right? And then access to the site shall be included concrete or asphalt surface for the portion of the access drive located within the Spencer Road right-of-way.
Yep, so we're
You have
doing
to
a-
do that.
Doing a concrete or asphalt
Right.
turnout.
The fencing, they're doing the fencing that they asked for with the trees and shrubs. Then they said they want a PVC fence I guess it's like a privacy fence, right? And then the sidewalk, which you're putting in a sidewalk, but only on the property you would have, because You can't go on a neighbor's property unless they want you to. So they've basically, yeah.
Yeah, they're, I think, going about it the right way. Okay, is there anybody here that wishes to comment on this case before we vote on it? Okay, I think we are ready to vote.
Voting with 5 conditions, Frankie Pretzel,
Yes.
Sherry Newquist,
Yes.
Herbert Brooks, Dawn Bullock, Raquel Mitchell, Judy Ogala, Denise Winfrey. Passes.
Motion carries. Congratulations. I do want to thank you guys for being proactive and thorough and easy to work with. So keep up the good work. Okay, next on the agenda, zoning case ZC 24120, Jacob O Farms LLC, owner of record, requesting a special use permit for a commercial solar energy facility, a variance for number of required mowings, a variance for maximum ground cover plant height. This one's in Green Garden Township, commonly known as vacant property on LaGrange Road, near northeast corner of LaGrange Road and West Manhattan Monee Road, County Board District number 3. Before I even get a motion in a second on this one, the applicant has requested that we postpone this, and that was due to a inability to be here today. So
I'll make a motion to postpone.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. I think we need a clean roll on this one.
To postpone, Frankie Pretzel,
Yes.
Sherry Newquist.
Yes.
Herbert Brooks.
Yes.
Dawn Bullock,
Yes.
Raquel Mitchell,
Yes.
Judy Ogala,
Yes.
and Denise Winfrey.
Okay, motion carries. Mr. Washburn, was that? No, you're not that one. Okay, on to number 6. Zoning case ZC 24124, Jeffrey and Lou Ann Hunt, owner of record, requesting a special use permit for an attached accessory dwelling unit, a variance for the maximum size of an accessory dwelling unit from 633.08 square feet to 724 square feet. Wheatland Township, commonly known as 28W015 Plainfield Drive, Naperville, Illinois, County Board District number 10. Need a motion and a second, please.
Second.
Winfrey, second Mitchell, and then I'll turn it over to Ashlyn for some additional information.
Yeah, so the applicants are constructing an attached accessory dwelling unit onto the rear of the existing residence to age in place. In the R3 zoning district, ADUs require approval of a special use permit. Per the architectural plans, the ADU is shown to be 704.52 square feet. The applicants requested a variance to increase the permitted size of the ADU, rounding up to 724 square feet to allow for potential revisions during the permitting phase. The addition is shown to meet all the required setbacks of the R3 zoning district. Of the agencies notified, no one objected. At the PZC meeting, no objectors were present. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the special use with a vote of 5-0 and approved the variance. And staff is recommending approval of special use permit.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant here? I invite you up to the microphone. And while we're waiting, do we have any questions from the committee for staff? Okay, I see Member Berkowitz has her microphone on.
Thank you, Chair Pretzel. I appreciate it. I just want to tell everyone that this is in my district, and I have gone over all of the case application and spoken with the applicant several times. And so I am supporting this project, and I would like to ask my fellow board members to also support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, welcome. Please introduce yourself and then go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Jeffrey Hunt. My wife Luann and I own the property. It's a tri-level property. We've lived there for 25 years. The bathrooms and the bedrooms are upstairs, laundry's downstairs, and the main floor is the living space. We're getting to the point in our lives where we can't do stairs anymore and want to stay in the property. And to be able to expand out one level, we can do that. And in the special use permit, we're asking to be able to put in another kitchen, which would have a stove in it, so that should we need assistance from family, we can be somewhat independent, and they can be independent in the main house. and we can stay there, as well as a bathroom in that ADU. And in this process, then we're putting in larger doors in case we ever need a wheelchair. We're trying to plan forward so that we can stay in the property as we move forward and not have to make much modification or move into some other smaller space where the kids can't kick a soccer ball in the backyard.
Yeah.
So that's what we're asking for.
Makes sense to me. I like the project. We have anybody here that wants to comment on this case? Member Mitchell?
I have a good question. I love your project, by the way.
Thank you.
Just wanted to know, did the fire department think this was okay with the extra?
I don't think there was any comment from the fire. I tried to make a personal contact with them and they didn't return my call. City of Naperville said they had no objections. They did return our call.
Okay.
Staff didn't receive any comments back from the fire district.
Okay. That was all. I was just curious, but yeah, great project.
Any other questions?
Yeah,
Member
I
Burke?
call over for dinner, Mr. Hunt.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Chair Pretzel, just for the committee's information, in that part of unincorporated Naperville, it's actually the Oswego Fire Protection District that provides the fire. And we've got a nice area of unincorporated there, so they're always there, and I don't see any problem with that. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment. I think we're ready to vote.
Frankie Pretzel?
Yes.
Sherry Newclass?
Yes.
Yeah.
Dawn Black?
Yes.
Carl Mitchell?
Yes.
Judy Ogala?
Yes.
And Denise Swin.
Motion carries. Congratulations. Good luck to you. I hope you don't need the wider doors. Okay, last under new business, zoning case 25005, LMD Liquor LLC, owner of record, requesting a special use permit for a bar tavern in Joliet Township, commonly known as 1619 East Cass Street, Joliet, Illinois, County Board District Number 6. The attorney is here today, and he has requested that we table this, I think until next month. Is that right? Until next month? So I'm looking for a motion and a second on it. We have a Winfrey, second Brooks. Previous Ogala,
Second Newquist.
second Newquist, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, motion carries. That'll be tabled. Okay, on to other business. We have a request for a refund of bond funds by Mr. Robert Popper, owner of record, requesting the refund for a claimed permit and license bond, Lockport Township, commonly known as 21152 Buckeye Court, Plainfield, Illinois, 60544, County Board District Number 9. Need a motion and a second.
Second Newquist.
Okay, and Brian, you want to tell us more about this?
Sure. The county has a contractor registration, bonding, and insurance ordinance. So whenever a contractor registers to do business in Will County associated with a building permit, they put up a $10,000 permit and license bond. The contractor in this case did just that. And Robert Popper had hired this contractor to do some work on his deck. And the deck was completed, but not to code. So there was a disagreement between the contractor and the homeowner. And it ended up being that the contractor refused to finish the work to code at Mr. Popper's residence. So Mr. Popper asked the county to file a claim on the bond. We did just that. And the insurance company decided that they would pay $5,200 to Mr. Popper in order to complete the work to the required building code. When we say refund, really, the county is collecting the money and then we're just returning it to the owner. This isn't money that the county is owed. So our state's attorney has asked us that we do process it this way just so that there's a record of what happened. And that's exactly what this is. So the work was, Mr. Popper hired another contractor to complete the work. It was $5,200. So if this request is approved by this committee and the county board, The check will be deposited with the county, and then we will reimburse Mr. Popper for that expense.
Previous rule? Because we have a motion and a second. Previous rule, Mitchell? Second O'Gala, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thanks, Brian. On to tiny homes. And I know Colin is excited to give us some direction on this.
No, you're giving me direction. Okay, so we're looking at the possibility of cracking open the zoning code on tiny homes. As of right now, tiny homes are classified as recreational vehicles and must be registered with the state of Illinois with the RV license plate, which only allows them to be used in Will County within approved campgrounds. That's how they are currently allowed. And so tiny homes do not meet the current building codes for a dwelling unit, our building codes, and we are unaware of any tiny home model that is approved by HUD as a manufactured home or the Illinois Department of Public Health as a modular home. Those are the two manufactured home type styles that are regulated in Illinois. And so we're not permitted to approve them as a main dwelling unit or even as an accessory dwelling unit. So for today, the question is, what is your priority concern? And then we'll work with that information. So I would like to ask each one of you, what would you want me to focus on? And
So I guess my question, I'm having a hard time understanding what the difference is between a tiny home and a mobile home. I thought I knew, but now based on what you're saying, we're looking at mobile homes as tiny homes. I thought a tiny home was
it's
anchored down to a foundation and had sewer and water.
No, tiny home is a recreational vehicle. It is something that can be towed. It's not a mobile home. Mobile home. No, it is not. Okay, but by Illinois statutes, when we say you go to a mobile home park, where you have the trailers and the double wide trailers, those are colloquially called mobile homes. Those are actually by statute, they are manufactured homes. That's what they're titled. Okay, so we have to worry about our terminology here. So they are manufactured homes. Modular homes are those that are assembled off-site, are built off-site, and then brought to on-site and then built that way. So there are bits and pieces, modular, put together. And those are regulated by the Department of Health. And each one of those is permitted as a dwelling unit, as long as that particular model is certified by either HUD or Department of Public Health. Everything else is a recreational vehicle. That's just what it is. It's called a recreational vehicle.
I haven't had a ton of time to think about this, or I haven't spent much time thinking about it, I should say, but I don't know if I'm interested in seeing a bunch of homes, what I consider a mobile home, coming to Will County as people live in them, right? If you have it and you bring it camping and you store it in your, storage center or backyard, whatever, that's different to me than people living in them. So you're asking us to come up with some guidelines for people to live in these homes that are still on wheels?
That is what a tiny home is, yes.
Yeah, please.
I mean, the reality is that people are living in these tiny homes. I mean, and tiny homes, modern day tiny homes, I mean, some of them are bigger than my house. I mean, literally, depending on, you know, how they're.
But you're talking about an accessory dwelling unit that has a foundation.
No,
and
I'm talking about the
electricity.
thing you just can order off of Amazon. You can literally order a tiny home on Amazon and they will deliver it to your house.
And it sits on-
And they put it on a gravel pad, I believe. And my kind of thing is, I'm not opposed to tiny homes. If someone wants to live in one, how is that any different?
I believe that we passed ordinance that says if it's over 250 square feet, it has to be on concrete. slab.
Right, but that's my point, there, that we're not enforcing that. You know, we had the issue in Crete come up, and I believe hers is on wheels, if I'm not mistaken. And, you know, and my thing is, if people are going to live in these as permanent dwellings, why wouldn't we treat them as any other permanent dwelling? Where
I
they.
think we agree, yeah.
Yeah, if they're on wheels, fine, but then they should be subject to the same standards as what's called trailers, but again, you know, the trailers are giant, a lot of them. Or if they're gonna be on a pad of some sort, why wouldn't we treat them the same way that we would at least a shed? I mean, it require a foundation. That's what I don't really, that's my thinking. And I also think that they have to have some type of sanitation. Absolutely. I don't know what that would encompass, if a composting toilet would qualify as sanitation, but there's got to be some type of sanitation and access to water, I would think. I don't know.
If it's a main dwelling.
All right, hold on. I am going to ask that everybody use their microphone so that everybody can hear, but do you want to make a comment? Mitchell?
Okay, well, I didn't really want to make a comment
Sounds like
into
you
the
do.
microphone. I want to piggyback off of Newquist, member Newquist. Yeah, if it's being used as a main dwelling, it should have sanitation. However, if it's a RV or used for recreational use, then I don't care if it has sanitation because that's what camping is all about. So I'm saying, I agree. We should just view it as like any other. Why are we very confused?
Yeah.
as to
Camping-
what we need.
The RV, the camping, it's already permitted at a designated
campground.
place.
Right,
And that's, I
right.
think, what they're trying to, what some people are asking us to change is maybe to allow use of those elsewhere, not in a designated place for camping.
Oh, so you're saying like if, on a regular street, we're going down Chicago and there'll be like a little tiny home there.
I think that's
On a
what some people, there's seems like there's a movement for us to allow that. Member Bullock.
So I feel like did I start this or did somebody else start this?
Oh, someone else.
Thank you. Good. I feel better. Because when I say tiny home, I am literally thinking of a home that is tiny, that has the electricity, the water, the whole 9 yards. Because it's a personal issue, I guess it is, but my children are not the only ones facing this. They need a home to move into, and there are no homes below $500,000 that they can move into on the salaries that they make when they just start their jobs. So I'm looking at, when I say a tiny home community, I'm talking tinier home, like let's go back to a ranch, everybody. Let's start ranch starters kind of thing. That's what I'm going for. So
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
The next item on the agenda is accessory dwelling units. And if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah, different issue.
that's what, I agree with you, by the way. We could have places for that. But
Yeah.
Right.
That's not
So-
what it,
So what you're proposing is allowed in Will County as long as it is met with the building code and all the
Okay.
health codes, health code, subdivision code and building code. Those are permitted already.
So then I'm putting in anybody want to help me get that going?
we're going to get to that next. Is there,
But yes,
I guess
that's
the
it.
question is there anybody on this committee that thinks tiny homes, as Colin defines them, is an area that we should look into permitting more or allow?
I do.
I don't care, yeah.
If they already have a place to be. Like, there's already a place to use them.
Well,
That's correct.
that's correct.
But but it's only, it is limited to only those approved campgrounds.
So how this came about was the woman in Crete that purchased a quote tiny home. And I'm not sure if she ordered it from Amazon, if she got it from somewhere else. And she put it on her property with no water, no sanitation, and she's planning on living there full time. So that's kind of how this all got started. But I think tiny homes, I mean, are getting to be a thing. I mean, heck, there's tiny home communities, and maybe what we need to do is a definition of a tiny home, like a realistic definition of a tiny home, because I think we're all talking about different things to some extent.
But I think we have the definition of tiny home.
Yes, we have the definition, this definition of tiny homes in accordance with state statute.
Can you please say it again?
We have a definition
No,
of.
no, will you give the definition?
Yes, yes, we have that, we've given it that definition, yes.
Will you say it again?
We have a.
What's the definition of a tiny
Oh,
home?
what is the definition? Sorry. The definition of a tiny home is a recreational vehicle that is plated on wheels and can be mobile.
And not to get out of order here, but will you please define an ADU?
An ADU is an accessory dwelling unit that is 49% or less than the primary unit, or 650 square feet, whichever is less. And that's coming up next.
What would you call it if Member Bullock suggested a community or even one small but permanent structure? Just a home, a residence?
Yeah. If it met building code, yes.
Is there a minimum square footage requirement in Will County?
Whatever the building code says, I don't know if there is one.
Do we know what that is, Brian?
I don't know what the bare minimum is, but there are some small minimum requirements just for like access points and whatever. That's going to generate the minimum amount of area. But I don't know what that number is. If Owen is still on here, he could jump on and maybe respond if he knows off the top of his head. Here he goes.
Hi, everybody. This is Owen, building official. The code, the IRC, the International Residential Code, just has minimum room sizes. So you could get there with a couple hundred square feet.
Okay, so thank you, Owen. So what you guys are talking about is not a tiny home.
Not if it has to have wheels, no.
Okay.
It's not a tiny.
So the question
That's not what-
remains, is there anybody on this committee that wants to move down this path of allowing more what we are all considering mobile homes?
So I'd like to comment.
Go ahead.
So if somebody owns a property and they have a tiny home on wheels, but they do have access to water, if they put in a well and they have a septic or whatever type habitat, whatever works best. And they tend to, let's just talk about snowbirds for an idea. If you want to live near your kids during the summertime and you get something like this where you can come in, hook everything up, and then disconnect and then go on to Florida and go, you might stay in a community, like a RV community or something, you have that same access there. That's a different type of thing, even though that would be on wheels. I think we really need to decide if it's a tiny home. You'll see them. People are like traveling nurses or whatever. They like to be able to take their home with them. Most of them go to a campground, but not all. But what if you had property and you wanted to do something like that? That's something to consider, because I know that is one that we're aware of. And a lot of places allow it in other states where people live off grid, right? They live off grid. They're not connected to water. They're not connected to sewer. They have a composting toilet, and they have obviously they must bring in water from somewhere. They might have an external tank or something, however they handle that. So that's the kind of situation we want to look at. Do we want to have something like that or not? That's the real question, because I'm totally in support, like you say, Sherry, bringing in a small community for vets or something like that with these tiny homes that people build manufactured, brought in as a pod or something like that, that would be great because I think it makes it affordable living, so.
So as
This
I
is-
see it, this already exists in campgrounds where you can go hook up to sewer and water and power. And I think that's the appropriate place to have something like this. My concern is if we open this up at all, you're going to have people that maybe inherit or own or buy a lot in a beautiful subdivision. And I'm thinking of Christmas Vacation. You know, one of those motorhomes pulls in, and that's what I have to look at now next to my $500,000 house. And he or she is perfectly within their rights to have that RV there.
Not necessarily. And I'm gonna tell you why. Because these these subdivisions, these HOAs have their own rules. So if it says that you can't have a tiny home in the subdivision, you probably won't be able to have one
I
in
live
the
in
subdivision.
I live in the village of New Lenox, but it used to be unincorporated. We annexed in. I don't have an HOA. And there's a vacant lot across the street. If somebody bought it
Mhm.
and put, like I said, you know, the cousin Eddie pulls up with his, you know, don't you go falling in love with it, Clark. It's coming with me at the end of the month when I leave here. I think that's what could happen. And then you have, you know, they're putting up self-made porches.
Well, maybe each municipality can have their own, or maybe the county can address that right away and say that you have to have the approval of planning and zoning if you want to build a tiny home. And then the parameters would be on, the onus would be on us to say, okay, this is appropriate or inappropriate. Maybe that's what we should do as opposed to blanketly saying yes or no. We have to do it on a case-by-case basis. You can't build a tiny home in the $1 million estate subdivision, say, for instance. You got to have it in a place, you know,
I think that
where it
it's
makes sense.
very dangerous area because we would have to, I actually think it is a lot would be based on physical appearance of the tiny home, right? And, you know, does it have to be operational? What if the tires are all flat and
They don't all
it's
have
rough
tires.
there inside?
They don't.
Yes, they do. Yes,
No,
they do. Yes, they do.
No, they don't.
It has to be plated and
I am showing you, these are tiny homes and they don't all have
Raquel,
lights. I've been following.
It
the
has to
tiny
have
homes thing
license
forever.
plates and wheels.
But they don't all have them though.
But there
Yes,
is.
The tiny homes
tiny
that you're
home.
buying on Amazon don't all have license plates or wheels.
Am I?
There are dwellings marketed on Amazon as
Yes.
tiny homes that don't have wheels.
Right. They may be small homes, but they're not the tiny homes that by statute.
We're not talking about those. We're talking about homes on wheels with license plates.
Okay, so that's a different story. Here's the question. We're talking about two.
No, we're not.
Yeah, wait,
Let's
one
be clear.
second.
We're only talking about homes with wheels and license plates. Can we all agree on that?
Is that?
Yes.
Then no, then we, no.
I think it's an outdated misnomer.
That's all we're talking about, because the next one we're gonna get into.
I think the definition needs.
We can't change that definition.
Yeah, it needs the
We need to
definition.
stop using the word.
So what's
Right.
already allowed in Will County?
That's what RV
would you to
is,
build,
that's right.
Owen
Okay.
just said, you could potentially, you'd have to own the lot, but you could put a 200 square foot structure on that lot. That's not a tiny home.
But it would be treated like any other home, correct? Where you have to have, and that I'm fine with, really. But what about the situation? So in Crete, are they on wheels?
The situation you are talking about does involve a structure that is on wheels.
So they are on wheels, but it's their own, it's her lot. She owns the lot. So she bought one of these quote tiny homes, which I don't know if it has a license plate. So I don't know if it actually fits the Illinois definition of tiny homes, but it's a dwelling on wheels. And I can tell you the neighbors hate it. You know, they're up in arms about it, but it's unincorporated. She's got it on her own property and, you know, and was not planning on dealing with any type of sanitation. However, the health department is currently working with her, as I understand it, to work something out. But I mean, it is a reality. And I can't imagine this is the only one like it in all of Will County. I just happen to think it probably came to our attention because the neighbors were complaining.
And I think that neighbors will complain more if we permitted this. So We have a new light on. We'll go to,
Well, it was on and then I turned it off because I didn't get on. But, so we're stuck with this definition, because to me, this is not a tiny home, this is a camper.
Right.
So, because as I know tiny homes from like the AARP magazines and all that, it is a fixed structure. And it doesn't have to be on somebody else's lot, which is an ADU. It's on its own lot, it could be a community of those. It's concrete under, it's got a front porch, everything is all hooked up. And people, older people, vets, whatever, live in those communities. So this campground thing, that's a camper to me.
what you're
So-
describing is already permitted in Will County.
Right, which to me is not the tiny home at all. That's, and I think the language is throwing us off some
No, I'm
because,
saying what you're describing though is a fixed one with, sewer, water and a foundation, even at 200 square feet is permitted. As long as it meets the bedroom size requirement.
but it doesn't have to be on the land of, it doesn't have to be a part of some other property.
Nope, as long as they meet the building code, there's no minimum size requirement in Will County.
Okay, so we don't have any provision in the code for small homes. I mean, naming them that so that people are clear about the distinction we're making. Because around the country, tiny home is concrete under the porch,
Yep.
stable.
Yep.
But we're calling campers tiny homes.
Correct.
Right. So, and I think that's causing a lot of confusion, because if you mean camper, just say camper. You got a license plate and wheels, that's really what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think the movement is they don't want us to refer to it as a camper because they want to live in it. They don't want to camp in it, they want to live in it. So I think there's a movement to get us to accept that that's a home, and I'm not there yet.
Yeah, I'm not there. It's a camper.
Member Ogalla.
Yeah, it is confusing. And I'm not sure if the lady in Crete has a license plate on hers, because there are some, as we see, tiny homes, like Denise was mentioning, that are moved from place to place, and they are not always towed. Some of them are towed. I guess if they're towed, you'd have to have a plate on them then.
I mean, but how is that any different? How is that any different from what we think of as a mobile home?
Well, the way they're constructed, right? A mobile home is usually like a vehicle that looks like a car or a van or something like that.
Right, but you have the mobile home parks where they're hardly mobile, but they're technically on wheels,
So here's where I'm at with this, Colin, because I know we're going in circles. There's already designated places for tiny homes. It's called campgrounds.
State of Illinois.
There's already room in Will County for you to build what we like to call tiny home or a small home, a significantly smaller home.
A small dwelling unit, yes.
And I personally don't want to see more of these popping up as what we're calling RVs on residential properties. But we do need to give him some direction on this, because what he's asking is, do we want to make it easier for people who have these homes on wheels with license plates to bring them to Will County?
Okay, this is what I'm saying. If it has wheels and a license plate, then it goes to a campground or RV park or mobile home park. Point blank, period.
Hold on 1 second on that note, and then we'll come back.
All right.
Let's go down the row here. Do you agree with that statement?
Yeah.
Do you agree with that statement, Member Newquist?
I actually do.
I do.
Yeah, actually.
I actually do.
What does actually do mean?
I'm sorry? Okay, and last,
So it's so confusing if you.
just a yes or no on that one?
Be a no,
No, you don't agree with,
if I want to.
okay, back. So
I'm on the fence.
if we were to vote on this, you would have lost. So we would say, I don't think we have any desire to see more of that in Will County.
Okay.
But I will give the microphone back to you because I cut you off.
However, if you're just a small home
All
or,
right, hold that thought.
okay.
Because we are going to go on to ADUs, and then I think this conversation belongs with ADUs, because we could also, because it's already allowed. You can build a small home in Will County right now.
Right.
With a building permit.
Right.
Okay.
Now, now we're gonna go to ADUs?
Mhm.
All right, what's the question?
And ADUs, well, I'm gonna get ahead of Colin here, but I actually, I'm a franchise owner. I looked at a franchise that actually builds ADUs. Long time ago, it didn't work out, but What I learned was there is a growing movement around this country, and it's really big out west,
Yes.
where people like Member Bullock's family, they have the means, they have the space, they want to help their children, so they put up an ADU in their backyard.
Yes.
It could be attached, it could be detached, but it is a fully functioning home with a kitchen, bathroom, bedroom, maybe a place for a TV, maybe that is what we all consider tiny home. So it's already allowed.
Or the pool house.
Well, there's no minimum, so as long as it doesn't exceed the ADU allowable, you can do it right now.
I can have somebody else, not that I'm gonna do this, but I could have them live in my backyard in an accessory dwelling unit. And you guys are all okay with that? My zoning comes through.
Let's answer that.
Well, we'll get into that in a minute.
I'm pro ADU. I'm pro ADU. I believe that you should be able to have like a little.
Are we getting ahead of you? Did you want to comment or do you want to go right into this?
Yes, let's get into what the actual issue is.
Okay.
So in Will County, we do allow accessory dwelling units, and it was obviously done to promote an alternative housing option and to maintain the accessory status from the principal unit. However, pretty much all the applications that we are seeing, either they require a variance or a special use permit for some reason or another, and it's usually because they exceed the maximum square feet of 650 square feet. And that is because, oops, I'm getting ahead of myself. The floor, it's the middle one there. The floor area for an ADU may not exceed 49% of the principal unit or 650 square feet, whichever is less. So most of these ADUs, correct me, Margie, if I'm wrong, they're running around 1,000 square feet, 1,200 square feet. So, does that sound about right?
So that's the smaller end. Some of these properties are actually putting as their ADU a full-size house, 3,000 square feet plus. So
this is what you want us to now give you some, does this committee want to increase that, or is that what you're asking now?
That's one of the questions, yes.
Okay, so now we can talk about, I think, what you all want to talk about.
Yeah, I'm ready.
And I think, Member Ogala, your light was on first.
Well, but this is, it's a bit different, I guess, but a small home can be on its own property as long as it meets whatever building code, and we have it on, they could be on a slab if it's one of these modular things, right? And put on a slab, yes?
Are you talking ADUs or the principal dwelling unit?
Principal, and I know,
Okay,
you don't know.
I'm not following, so, because I'm in ADU headspace.
Okay, I'll stick with ADU. So an ADU means I have a home already and I want another dwelling unit. Now, wasn't it in the past that somebody could bring in a manufactured home as that ADU, which is on wheels?
Right, that is a very specific item.
Eco housing.
Eco housing, yes.
Okay.
That is very specific. So yes, we still have that, yes.
Okay, so by having this ADU, it allows you to build another home, small home, on your property so your kid could live there.
Or an attached unit to the existing structure, which I believe is what happened today, correct?
Right.
Yep.
That one's attached. That's an
That
that's
would
an
have to
addition.
be attached. Okay. Okay. Yeah, what you were saying.
All right, so this is my view on the ADU. I am pro ADU. My only issue is the, or 650 square feet. If you live in a 5,000 square foot home, why can't you have 1,000 square foot ADU?
So I'll answer this. So first of all, I think you should be able to if you have a lot of property. What happens
Right.
though is we had this one come in New Lenox, this guy clearly doing something right in life, and he's building one of the biggest homes I've ever seen. And his pool house was like 2,000 square feet. And unfortunately, there wasn't much left on this property other than, his ADU pool house, and which had a full kitchen in it, and his home. So I think that's why they have these rules. But if you live on, and we had one in Beecher, I remember come recently, and the guy had a beautiful barn and he wanted to put a kitchen in it, and it was over the allowable. And so the neighbors were freaking out. I'm like, hey, he's got 10 acres of property.
Well, so
Why
that-
shouldn't we allow this? So
that's the point that I'm
that's, I
getting
think, what
to.
he's asking. Do we want to change this?
Yeah,
I
that's,
personally,
that's where I'm
we
going.
do.
Right.
We should, but we need to make sure that we say you can't take more than a certain percentage of your property or
Land.
whatever. I
Land.
think that's what Colin's asking us.
I think that's more of, that's where I was going. You shouldn't be able to take too much more of your land. So if you live on a 1 acre property, I don't even know what that looks like, but you know, if you live on a 1 acre property, you can't have like a behemoth of a accessory building.
In our terminology, it's called the floor area ratio.
1
So-
acre is actually quite a bit of land, but a quarter acre
Right.
is not.
I agree. So it should be not to exceed 49% of the principal unit. Forget about that, or 650 square feet. It should be, maybe it should also be the amount of land. It should be the whatever the
Floor area ratio, yes.
floor area ratio.
Let me ask you this, Colin. If we had just eliminated that can't exceed 49%, can you think of a negative there? I mean, if someone built a ADU that was bigger than their home, for example, is that a bad thing? Would that be a bad thing?
It's then what is the principal, what's the accessory? So
Why does that matter?
So maybe we just drop the 650 minutes?
Maybe. Yeah, member Winfrey mentioned for tax reasons, maybe that would cause some problem. I don't know. I think the assessor would be able to assess it all but I don't know. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I do. So I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly. I can put an RV or one of the quote tiny homes as defined by the state of Illinois in my backyard as an accessory dwelling.
No.
I can't. Okay, that's what I thought you said, and that's why I'm like,
No,
wait, I gotta
no, no,
check
no.
this out.
If what you're allowed to do with the eco housing is the mobile home from mobile home parks, that is allowed as an eco housing.
Okay, so in addition to my primary dwelling or,
Yeah, correct. But it requires a special use permit.
so,
And it's considered a temporary use. So it basically, they have to renew every year. The E in echo is elderly. So it's supposed to be for elder care is the intent for that.
but again, if I have a dwelling that would fit in a mobile park, like the mobile home, like the tiny homes we just talked about,
Right.
I can park that in my backyard with a temporary use permit and have somebody live there.
Correct. Not just a generic special use permit. It's under the echo, right? And go ahead, Margie.
Oh, I was just going to say with the eco housing, we haven't really seen any requests for it, mainly because of the restrictions to it. It's elderly, it's 65 years of age or older, or it's some medically diagnosed disability where you do need somebody like care provider or children who need additional care. And we do check annually if it is still used. If it's not, there's size limitations, it's mobile home, it's HUD approved, and it's very regulated. So now with the ADU, people choose to go the ADU route because of less regulations.
Got it. Okay, thank you. I just did not understand that.
Are our regulations consistent with other counties? Did you look at this as far as the 49% or 650 square feet?
Not yet. I'm trying to gauge your priorities.
Member Ogala?
So I have a question. So with 49% of the principal unit, that varies because somebody could be an R1, an R2, an E1, and E2. It's all various size properties, right? And somebody might have built a small home on the property, say a small ranch for a husband and wife, let's just say. And then their older kid grows up and they're like, well, we're now going to build another house. That would be the ADU. and you can live there, but now you are there to also help take care of us, right? So, and maybe, 49% of the property, I guess we could have a small home, and maybe you're building a bigger ADU, so your children, with their children live there, and you stay in the littler house, but your kids are there to take care of you. So, yeah, it's kind of like, would you not want to be able to build a bigger one than 49%? And I don't know what the tax implications, you pay tax on both properties, I'm sure.
It's one property.
Wait,
One
Both buildings.
yeah, your text on your property, not your house. So everything on your property.
Yeah, everything on your property, so you'd be taxed for it either way, whether it was or not.
Before we continue on, it looks like Owen has a point to make.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to bring up, I think what you're speaking of is lot coverage, which would include detached structures as well, so that the entire lot or the entire land is not filled up entirely with buildings all over the place.
Correct.
Okay, and then when we're thinking about the 49%, we have to think of attached ADUs as well. And kind of think about it like in a single family subdivision that doesn't allow duplexes, you kind of want to keep it so maybe it doesn't have two defined entrances facing the street, if you understand what I'm saying, you know what I mean? So it looks like two houses kind of thing. But that's just something that I was talking to Brian about at some point. And then there was a comment about the 49%, and maybe if I was understanding the comment correctly, if we could write the zoning ordinance to make the new home the principal structure and the existing home the ADU.
Right. Yeah. That's fine.
So I just wanted to bring it up if there are
I think
options for you guys to think about, that's all, okay?
Yeah, thank you. I'm just trying to read the pulse of the committee here. I think we all kind of support you being able to build something else on your property if you own the property. Is that I see a lot of heads nodding. So I think what we're saying is we'd like to kind of get out of their way a little bit without completely destroying a neighborhood. You know, what are the unintended consequences of us just saying, hey, if you want to build a second one, then get a building permit and follow the code, and
Right.
we support that.
And that is the problem with ADUs, especially if you're doing them as permitted uses, is that you are doubling the density automatically.
So like driveway space, more kids on the school bus, things like that.
And since our land resource management plan is density based, so it does become an issue in that respect. And there's some density aspects that are part of our subdivision code as well. So it's an issue. It's not, it can't be overcome, but it is there.
Yeah. Okay. I
Sherry
don't know
was
which order.
first.
Go ahead, Member Newquist.
So I have a question about like basic facilities, like some friends of mine who live in LaSalle County, her dad needed some supervision, so they actually put an accessory dwelling unit in their backyard, and her dad was living there, but he didn't have a kitchen. He also didn't have a bathroom. He had to use the bathroom in their house. So, I mean, are we looking at any potential regulations around that, or would we consider that acceptable right now under a living?
Those would be health code questions, not zoning code.
But I mean, it kind of goes along with if we're going to allow more people to build ADUs, is that part of the deal or no?
They wouldn't get a building permit because they can't show that they have.
Right, health code.
So we're just.
So we don't allow, our health code would not allow, that's what I'm trying to get at, an ADU that didn't have a bathroom in it. Or would it? I don't know.
For a detached, that would be correct. And
Okay.
if it's attached, there's already the.
Right,
existing
it's
bathroom
attached,
itself.
it's part of the primary
The D
dwelling.
is dwelling, meaning somebody's gonna live in
Right,
there.
right.
We'll have to follow all of the codes that we currently have, meaning bedroom size, bathroom, things like that, right?
LaSalle County allowed it, by the way.
That's why I don't live there.
It's not why.
Okay. My question, I did have a really great question about density. And that was, at any point, density could change. You could have two grandparents who get custody of their 4 grandchildren and change, density and that kind of thing. Anything could happen. Because that's just life. Life be lifing, as young kids say. But getting back to, I know I sound really crazy when I say this, but why do we care if the accessory dwelling unit does or doesn't have a bathroom? Like, if there's a house.
Because it's a
yeah.
dwelling unit.
So I'm saying one second, let me finish the whole question. If there's a house on the property, it may be like, say, for instance, if you had lived in a large house, whatever, and say stupidly the house was, you have to go way in the other wing to go to the bathroom. That's how I view it. Like, you still have a bathroom, you just have to walk further to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, I don't care particularly, but and maybe I wasn't expressing myself correctly. I was just wondering if this was part of the regulation, like, because it's a lot more expensive to build a house with a bathroom than not. So I'm not taking a stand one way or the other as long as there's available sanitation.
I do think it's important too. You almost want to make it a little bit harder because otherwise, I mean, keep in mind, people can rent these too. It's not all for our parents or our children or in-laws. And if I have 4 walls and a roof in my backyard and I can charge, $400 a month for someone to live there, but there's no bathroom, somebody will rent it.
Yeah.
And then where are they going to go to the bathroom? You know what I mean? So you do have to be careful. I'm not looking to change our current building code or regulations for what defines a dwelling unit. The question is, should you be allowed to build more onto your property that you own? You see there's already regulations on exterior. Does that have to be brick or certain siding? So you can't just put the wrap around it and call it a day, right? Roof height and pitch, exterior door location, setbacks. Those are good things, right? I think we all agree. The question is, do we want to allow somebody that has a 20,000 square foot house to have a pool house that's maybe 12,000 square feet
So big there.
Yeah.
and on 20 acres? I mean, who are we to say no?
Yeah, I'm not saying no.
Good for them.
Yeah.
Maybe it needs to go by a percentage of lot size, kind of like how we have now, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that 49%. I don't know.
Not a lot size now.
Right.
Oh, it's the principal unit, right. Maybe it needs to be like, instead of the size of the principal unit, right, like a percentage of lot size.
I believe that's something that somebody, one of those members said, that would be Raquel. I said that earlier on, we could be done with.
Did you guys, I don't want to ignore you.
Sorry, it's right over my head.
Yeah. Okay.
So my question would be, so to allow something like this, we could grant some depending on the zoning classification. So I live on an A1. If I put another home on my A1 parcel and I have a 160 acre farm, nobody really cares, right? Nobody cares. But if I'm rural residential or estate, maybe, so I would say we should look at it by zoning, what your property is zoned. A1, A2 is 5 acres, right? I get confused with sizes of the E1 and E2 and the R1 and all that. So maybe we need to look at to allow it by right on certain sizes, certain property zoning classifications, and special use permit where we can say, this makes sense here, and this does not make sense there. And then maybe a percent of the land versus the principal property. Or, I don't know if the principal, because I don't think it matters, and none of us seem to care if you switch the principal dwelling unit to be the new one versus the old one. No one cares
If
about
that did
that.
concern you, you could just say cannot exceed the size of the permanent
Okay,
dwelling.
there you go. So they're already, an accessory dwelling unit on conforming lots are permitted by right on A1, A2, E1, E2. So that's all. It's the smaller parcels where we don't deny it for residential and then industrial. Mhm. For an SUP.
And industrial is a different animal too.
Okay, why are we giving special, why can't you just, if you have a big enough property, you can just put the ADU on there and call it a day? Why are we giving special, I don't care if it's an ag land or a state property or whatever, if you have a big enough lot, then yeah, you can put your accessory dwelling. Why are we saying it's okay for this zone, but not okay, but you have to ask for a special permission for this zone?
Yeah. Put your mic on.
Right, but if you have I understand that part. All I'm saying is that if you have say you're R1, right? And you have a 1 acre lot on an R1, it's still the same rule. If it's a 1/4 acre lot, it doesn't matter. You can't exceed the size of your property. You know what I mean? You can't exceed the size of our little plan to make it conforming to the amount of land you have. So if you only have a 1/4 acre lot, you can only put so big of a structure on there.
You want to know what I think it is? Just processing all this. It will bring in renters, right? If we just open it up, if you have you live in a 1/4 acre lot and you can now put an ADU in the back, it's permitted use. It's going to bring in renters. People are going to build it to offset their high mortgage, which is what we want to do, right? Because it helps our kids and sure. So I think the reason that this is probably frowned upon is because, we both live in $500,000 homes, but you have renters in the back of yours, and it means we're not on the same playing field. People move into subdivisions. I know we're talking about unincorporated, but because they want to be like their neighbors with income and they don't want the renters. I think that's why these are there. That's my thought.
Would renters put it in a different zoning classification?
No, it would not be.
No, Margin.
I just want to jump into, I know there was comments regarding definition of accessory dwelling units just based on size. One thing we see as staff with building permits is, what does that mean? When we look at blueprints for architectural plans for houses, things like that, we see a lot of double kitchens. If it's, 2 kitchens upstairs, you have a bedroom that's secluded on one side of the property or the house, and then you have a bathroom, is that an accessory dwelling unit, or is that just somebody wants 2 kitchens and to have their master bedroom or a guest house on the other side of the house? So having some type of clarity of what we want to see as an accessory dwelling unit, I think will be very helpful also going forward.
Okay, we got nowhere.
Actually, I got a lot of good ideas, so.
All right, good.
So,
We will revisit this next month.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, this one's gonna be real fun. Small modular nuclear reactors, or SMRs.
Right. So the state of Illinois has allowed small modular nuclear reactors in the Illinois as long as they are less 300 megawatts or less. And so they're building a pilot project in Champaign to see how this would go. So doing my research on what would that mean in Will County, I'm getting very, very confused because there are like 4 different fuel types and 6 different cooling mediums that can be available, and mixtures of the two. So there's lots of combinations and permutations involved in that. So and then each each one then has different size needs, water needs, location needs. And so it's going to be a little complicated for me to get something very succinct put together. So I'm trying to carve out a white paper for everybody to see, and so we can discuss it when I understand what's going on.
Sorry.
Why would I need a small nuclear reactor? Or small module?
Yeah,
Like
but-
what would,
The idea in this area would be to mitigate the power drain that a data center would require, a Microsoft data center or an AI central hub, those kind of things. Because not only do you have the power needed to drive the computer systems, you also need energy to drive the cooling systems. So that's a double whammy. And yes, we have a lot of power here. We've got 3 nuclear reactors real close to us and a couple others nearby. So the Chicagoland area is pretty good on power as of right now. But if these things, the data centers and AI central nodes start popping up, ComEd's going to squawk. And so we may need to possibly look into them. I don't see that happening in the near term, but since my job is to be a planner, I have to look out for you guys.
So if you're paying attention to like the national news right now, you see Trump goes on a lot and talks about these investments into the United States for $500 billion and stuff. A lot of that is these data centers and the ability to power AI technology. And our grid as it stands today, not necessarily in Will County, but at the national level, is significantly behind where it needs to be with AI. We're not even halfway there. So we are going to, in my opinion, see these modular nuclear reactors coming along with all these data centers popping up around the country. Maybe not in Will County, because we have 3 nuclear power plants. But I do think that we need to be prepared for this technology. My personal opinion on this is I want to make it as hard as possible for these people. I don't want to be haphazard on this because we don't know yet, right? I don't know what happens if something goes awry or a car accidentally hits it or on purpose hits it. And I think we need to make sure that they have to get special use permit and come before this board and the full board and get approval, maybe even 3/4 approval. I mean, it's a big deal to put a nuclear station near, maybe potentially near a subdivision or school.
Now, it should be pointed out, these are not the Braidwoods. Basically, the unit itself can be brought in on a truck. That's how small it is. And then the building itself is a large barn. So it's not, it's not a Braidwood, but depending again on the cooling medium, it could consume a lot of water. Or for security purposes, they need a lot of land. I don't know those parameters quite yet.
Member O'Ballard?
That was going to be my question, Colin, is what is the land requirement for these? I mean, I know I just met with battery storage in Manhattan. I think it's 40 acres and they have requirements and needs there as well. And again, it's because of this crazy data centers and all the electricity and AI that AI needs to operate. I say get rid of AI. I'm scared of that. We can do too much stuff. Yeah, I don't like it. So what is the size? Do you have any idea the size requirement of land?
I'm coming across 20, depending on 20 acres, 40 acres, and 120 acres are the ones that I'm seeing right now. But I don't know what is what. Like I said, there's there's 6 different types of units out there, and I don't know why they would need 120 acres, or is it 120 acres for the unit and the data center? I don't know. So those are the kind of
So
questions. that-
yeah, we need to know, and of these 6 types, are 3 more favorable and 3 less favorable?
From what I'm seeing, yes, there, 3 do not meet exceed the criteria of 300 megawatts as the maximum. So it doesn't mean that they can't gear those down. But yeah, there's 3 that would be 300 megawatts or less, and each one has their own different fuel style. Some use rods, some use what they're calling tricor, I think it is, which are the size, so it would be just a little piece of uranium in the size of a poppy seed and coated with a whole bunch of ceramic material. And with that, it is less likely to be part of a meltdown. That ceramic can withstand intense heat. So I don't, but then the question is, how much do you need of those? I don't know.
Yeah, so my thought there is, and this goes to our state's attorney in the room, Matt. Okay, because I mean, for me, could we say of the 6 types, we will only allow 4 and not allow the other 2? Or we're going to end up in a situation with solars, you got to take whatever they give us. Same thing with battery storage. I mean, if they take up less, if you have more availability of power from one of these versus a solar battery storage, not solar, just battery storage, and you're taking up less land, it's a toss-up here. I don't know.
So this is all unknown. I mean, the one we're talking, that Brian just mentioned it to me, I guess there's one being built now. It's at U of I. And they're applying for federal oversight for that one. So in my humble opinion, this is not going to be a county oversight. This will not be a municipality oversight. I don't even think it's going to be a state oversight. I believe it's going to be federal. Just my opinion. But at the worst, maybe state. I cannot foresee one municipality allowing them 2 of the 6, another one allowing 4 of the 6. I don't have the manpower, the expertise, or anybody to monitor these things, regulate these things. In my opinion, again, I don't see this being a local oversight matter, but I'll leave that as it is. It's just too much unknown at this point, so I
Yeah.
can't even begin to answer any of these questions.
So right now, we just say no until we know more.
Yeah, I think we want to slow play this one. You get what you need?
Yes, I have what I need. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Procedures of development of agricultural or former agricultural properties or drain issues. Judy?
Okay, yeah, we skipped this last week, but our things didn't all match either. Like what you were looking at was different than I was looking, happens sometimes with the crazy system. So this is something, and I don't think I've talked to about it at all with this group, is, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I may be, but let's just say you have a 20 acres or you have 120 acres and you're taking as a landowner and you're dividing off 20 acres and you want to break that into 4 5-acre parcels, okay? Right now, the whole 120-acre farm would have field tiles running haphazardly through it, however, right? Much like when we look at putting in a solar facility, they have to do a field tile study for the whole 40 acres of the 160-acre farm or something like that. And what I have seen happen, and maybe I'm wrong in my thought, but what I've seen happen is, out by me, we had 3 5-acre parcels so 15 acre into 3 5-acres. And when the one person started building on one of the 5 acres, the surrounding farmers started complaining about flooding and things like that that didn't happen before. And so my thought was, what if we went ahead and asked everybody for something like this to do a field tile study? The property owner who wants to break it into, sell their land off, because you're gonna make a lot more money off of smaller parcels, right? So sell their land off to make some money. What if they had to do a field tile study before we approved them breaking it into the 20 acres into 4 5-acre parcels? To make sure that they're not negatively impacting a surrounding landowner, because you never know where the land parcel is in that, like that one area here. If you did something, you could totally flood out your neighbor if you break the field tile, and then it's on their lands. So that's kind of what I was thinking. I don't know what anyone else thinks. I know if they're going to build on that 5-acre, they have to meet with the building standards and everything like that. But I don't think it prevents somebody with an excavator from accidentally going and crushing a field tile. And then who holds them responsible and how do you get it fixed afterwards? And on Moni Manhattan Road in your district, Sherry, we never had, this was in Green Garden when we were together. There was a big subdivision put in and my neighbor lived in a farmhouse near it, right? And when the subdivision got put in, she suddenly had tons of flooding on her property that she never had before. And that was years ago, and so things were building were much different. So I'm thinking if you want to sell off your property, maybe you do a field tile study so that the person buying a smaller parcel of your land, you would know where it was, and that way you could prevent damage, or you have to fix that because you have to have that tile running through your property out because we don't have, we don't have sewers in that, so we have to handle it somehow. That was my thought on this.
I mean, I would agree. I think it's a good idea, but I guess I have a couple of questions. One is, who would pay for it? Would it be the seller or the developer or the buyer? And number two, how easy is it to find these things? Like, are they mapped anywhere? I'm assuming not. And if that's the case, like, how do you actually do this? I mean, to find out I just don't have a clue as to how this would actually be done.
Right, so some farms, they're mapped, right? Like we have them mapped on ours because we put all new in because ours had been old clay. They all, they get damaged over time, right? The clay collapses, you get a hole in the middle of your field, so you fix it. I think the landowner selling it should be the one responsible. What we have with solar is they have to have a field tile study. So Huddleston comes out, does a field tile study. I have no idea what it costs. And it's a larger parcel possibly, maybe not. And they identify where it is. And in most cases, they're redoing a lot of the field tiles because, you're putting those posts in on a planned basis, right? Where your home would be a little bit different. So if you did the field tile study and you have a 5-acre parcel and you want to put your house here, well, maybe if you moved it here, you're not going to disrupt that field tile. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, so some are mapped, but some are not. All the old ones are not mapped, but a lot of farmers drew their hand drawings and you can see it. That's what they did back in the day, so.
Okay, so question. I could understand having, if I'm dividing my property, making me pay for the field tile study to make sure I'm dividing it properly and that I'm not hitting anything. Do we not require our subdivision developers to do that when they
It's
take
not a
over?
subdivision, and I guess that's where we need information from you guys. So like that, it was in Will Township. They created 3 out of 15 acres. They made 3 5-acre parcels, and they didn't do a field tile study, and that's where it happened. Then what I've heard from staff has been the building codes, when they're building, there's things they have to look at. So how does that come into play when they're actually going to start building and they locate where they want their house? How do we ensure if something like that happens, how do we fix that or control that?
I will try to address that question. So when you refer to 5-acre division of land, that is under the Illinois Plat Act and the Will County Subdivision Ordinance, which follows that act. That is an exempt division of land. So somebody can divide up any property that's 5 acres or greater as long as it has street frontage and go record those lots and then sell them off. When somebody comes in to build on a property like that, there's a gap between what the county requires a site development permit for and the amount of acreage up to that 5 acres. So if we don't have a site development permit, then they're not required to, then we wouldn't have the ability to require the field tile survey. So if you really want the survey, you're going to have to make a change to what the site development permit requirements are based on the acreage and say that it's going to be required, you know, at this minimum, whatever you determine the acreage is for development. And that would be across the board. It's hard to just say it can only apply in this rural area or this part of the township. It has to be, you know, a fair requirement for all properties that if it's this size, then we need a field tile study. There is existing regulations for subsurface drainage that if you do break a tile, that you have to fix it. So that's in there. That's part of the county's water resource ordinances. So when that scenario happens and somebody's aware of it, or if we find out at a later date, the property owner is responsible to fix it. So if you find that that method is fine and working, then that's what's in place right now. It only gets fixed and if we are aware of a problem. Like, so if somebody starts construction on a 5-acre property and they hit a tile, I mean, really, it's in their best interest to correct it, but, you know, maybe it doesn't get done. But if you're comfortable with the way that works, that's what we already have. If you don't think that's working, then we'd have to require a field tile study based on a minimum acreage.
Okay, so the question becomes, like, if a developer comes in and builds on a small mini subdivision, which can be very small, right? Of small homes, because she wants to get rid of the kids and I don't blame her. But let's just say if they go ahead and do it and you're doing during a drought time, you'll never know if you hit a field tile. Maybe the person building doesn't care, right? If they don't care, they crush the field tile, rip it up, whatever. Nobody knows about it because how do we know, right? We don't know. Come rip it up, cover it over, haul the crap out. You would never know, right? So my question is then, what do we do in a situation like that? And now we hit a rainy season and now you got flooding all over the place that we didn't know before. The developer's gone, the new homeowner's there. Who's responsible then?
The homeowner is always the property owner is the responsible party whenever there's a violation of any county code or ordinance. So, you know, they'd be left holding the bag to fix whatever the issue is. And that's only going to be if it's identified. You know, if somebody says, oh, all of a sudden I got this water, I don't know where it's coming from. Well, then we'd have to research it and figure out what's going on and find out who the responsible party is. But if it's on the property that they own, then they're the responsible party to fix the drain tile so that whatever the water issue is resolved. With subdivisions that fall under the Plat Act, meaning there is a plat of subdivision that comes before this committee, which is the Plat Committee, there will be a field tile study. So, but you're not concerned about those because we're already doing that. We're talking about the ones that fall in that gap where that isn't happening because they're exempt divisions of land. And then they're above the threshold of what a site development permit is required for to build a home. Because if there's a scenario where there's no floodplain or wetland, and let's just say it was a 7-acre property and it was zoned E1, we don't need a site development permit. Like there won't be a site development permit standard. It'll just be a plat of survey and they'll draw the home on it and we have to permit it because of the size of the property.
So what all is involved in the site development?
Full engineering. Got to get a PE. It's got to be, drainage has to be designed. So, you know, there's a cost associated with that, but people that are building on smaller lots are already paying those costs. So, I mean, if you feel that it's appropriate to be done, then you would want to increase the acreage and make it apply that way.
What do you guys think?
I guess I don't know that I really know enough about the problem to make a good, recommendation. I mean, this is just me not being aware of this. Let's say I live in a subdivision in unincorporated Will County and we have half-acre lots. So we're, I don't know what, we might be R3 maybe, something like that. Am I gonna have field tiles as long as I have, well, I'm assuming it's well and septic since I'm unincorporated.
So at one time you probably had field tiles there, but hopefully when the subdivision was developed, they were identified. And then when there's the overall drainage plan for the subdivision, they may have been removed, but it was replaced with a, whatever size 20-inch pipe or whatever to get water to wherever it needed to go. So in subdivisions, it's a bit like with smaller lots, it's probably not going to come up very often. And if it was a problem, you would already know.
I'm good. I think we did enough talk about it that I kind of understand that probably not interested in doing it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, see, it worked. We worked through it. All right, solar status report, Marguerite, Brian.
There really isn't
Good.
much to report. We had, I think, 2 new submittals in the last month, so they'll be completing and then coming forward.
I didn't hear
Two new
what you said.
submittals for
2
solar.
new submittals that are being reviewed, aside from the ones that are coming forward this month, next month.
All right, good. And then last but not least, update, Colin, from the Land Resource Management.
We're trying to do a third RFQ, and right now it's sitting in purchasing. And then Nicholas Hernandez has update on the Fairmont plan.
Hello, just a quick update. Continuing my outreach to the public and also trying to find some potential partners in the implementation process later on. So,
thank you guys. Yeah.
So Colin, have we asked, are other counties looking to do this land resource management plan and having any luck?
I didn't hear.
Are there other counties that are doing the land resource management plan with an RFQ? Are they having any luck?
Oh, that was part of the problem. Yes, they were doing it. And so we couldn't, so nobody was bidding because they were already busy on other projects.
They were busy on another project.
Right.
Maybe now they'll be done.
Correct.
Ah, gotcha. Thank you.
Yep. Member Bullock.
Hi, still a question really quick. I know that I saw at some point a Will County map of solar. One, does that get updated every time we get one of these guys? And 2, is it always available to find?
I will defer to Colin. I think the update's a work in progress,
Yeah.
but this one was probably from fall of last year.
No, yeah, I can, I update it when you ask me to update it.
Can you update it? Because when I saw all of these guys coming in together, I'm going, okay, where are all these going on a big scale?
Right.
We're over 80 in the last 15 months.
And how many different vendors? Is that the word?
Yeah.
How many different vendors?
At least a dozen.
Yeah, I would say a handful. Soltage has been around for a while. You've heard other companies. We're starting to get a few new ones that we haven't worked with. So those will be, once we get reviewed and they get scheduled, you'll have the pleasure of working with them. But with any solar company, we provide all the information and guidance we've been provided by this committee. So we encourage them for strong outreach and to reach out to county board members, public officials early on in the process so that when they come forward, they have a lot of the initial concerns addressed.
Tell you what I would like to see, if I could get some support on this, I would like to have we only permit like 2 per square,
So many square miles.
3 miles, let's say, something like that. And I understand we can't do that according to the state statute, but I'd be okay with that. I'd like to say we're not even hearing cases if there's more than 2 already within 3 square miles, something like that. But it would be nice to have that because what we're seeing is, like in Peatone, we had 3 on one street. And those poor people, right? Like, those are the kind of things that I would like to see this committee maybe get ahead of. And then we would reduce the amount that come to us and we'd have more lawsuits.
I agree.
So can I mention something?
Yeah.
So if you come to legislative committee, I know everyone doesn't because you can't always be there, but this is, I think, the second year now with that bad legislation that they passed during lame duck where they took away our powers, right? This year, we have seen more bills submitted, and maybe not going anywhere, but more bills submitted by our state legislators to try and give us some control back. So I think that's a positive. I think we need to continue to work and ask and tell them what our problems are, and deny the ones we think are ridiculous. So if we see a situation where we have way too many in one area, we're just going to deny it. We can, in our own mind, and see how that goes in the court system, or if we can get a legislator bring it forward. I think they'll, because when I sit on the ISACO Wind and Solar Task Force, and what we have, our problems are everywhere. And I know that Dan Butler had been in NACO, and they heard the same thing there, as well as the ag community is not wanting all this on prime farmland, right? We need to draw a line and say, do we want to build out all prime farmland for these things? So I think we're going to see some changes, maybe not this year, but I think that at least they're hearing us now. They weren't hearing us before. They just put that legislation through, so they're hearing us now. So that my hope is we will be able to do that. But I know that there's some talk, and even the lobbyist suggested, and our speaker had said, well, maybe if they don't have to come to us for a special use permit, that's better since we can't deny it. I don't like that idea because we're able to get, like we saw today, the Village of New Lenox, they came to get a special use permit. They want the PVC fencing, right? So we're able to do that. If they don't have to come to us for a special use permit, we don't have that. We can't say we want landscaping here and this, that. And so I would hate for us to give up that, even though we have to hear a lot and we feel we can't deny, although we have denied some. We've denied them for the same reason. And there were 2 bills put in. One was LaShawn Ford and the other one was Emil Jones put those forward. That's great. They aren't moving right now, but maybe they will move next year. Maybe they'll be moving in the fall session or something like that. So I think it's good, and I think we should really look at our ordinance, see what we'd like to put in, see what we think we need to do, and have that conversation, make sure we're making those comments here and expressing those comments to our state legislators, because they need to hear our issues to make a change.
Agreed. Well, you guys just have a comment to make? 'Cause we're getting there. I don't have any comments. So now we're on to committee member comments. Do we have any? All right, Director, did you have a comment? Yep.
No, just a lot of good, healthy, constructive discussion today. So I want to compliment the staff for really having all the answers to the questions. So.
Yeah, amen to that. That was good. Even Owen chimed in. Okay, on to other or public comment. Do we have any public comment today? Did anybody hang in there? Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, then I'm looking for, we don't have an executive session, right? No. So motion to adjourn. We have a Mitchell.
Second Newquist.
Second Newquist. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the next meeting is scheduled for April 3rd, 2025. Meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody.